Hey friends, Bran here. Just wanted to take a moment to address a very important aspect of this episode. Number one, Barry and I are not doctors. We're just two dudes who are incredibly passionate about this stuff and think it'll help a lot of the problems that we're seeing in society and in people and just in general. We are going to offer some ideas. It is very important for you to consult with a doctor and take the necessary steps before you make any super serious life-altering changes. Also, nutritionists are a great resource, and dietitians are also. They're kind of similar. But just wanted to cover that for, a CYA kind of thing. Cover your butt aspect. So have your salt handy, sprinkle it where necessary, and do the correct thing for yourself, starting with seeking actual professional help. So thanks for that. Let's get to it. Welcome, friends and scoundrels. I'm Bran.
He is Bran.
And that's Barry.
Hey.
And this is Bless Reach, podcast where we're working to better ourselves.
Yeah, this is episode 2091 at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minus the 2090.
Hey. All right.
Anyways, so as you can probably tell already, we're not ashamed to have a little bit of fun.
I'm not ashamed to make fun of myself, and he's not ashamed to make fun of me also.
Definitely not afraid of making fun of Barry. So today, we thought it would be a good idea to start with health, kind of generally, but we're going to break this down into a couple, 2 or 3 different sections. And today we're focusing very heavily on nutrition because we believe it is a foundational element to a lot of personal issues that people have, problems in their lives, whatever. Because nutrition really does affect everything on such a tiny level that we don't even realize.
Like a lot. It's very.
But and we'll get into that a little bit more as we get into this episode. But nutrition has such a huge impact in such tiny ways.
Yep. Ways that go unnoticed.
Yes.
Until you are complaining about something, and usually that something started with.
But on that, it's also. It seems hard when people are looking at this, but it really is one of the easiest changes you can make.
Yeah, out of life-changing things within our lives, it is as far as money goes in the big picture, as far as our habits go, as far as, well, those two things to me are really like the two biggest things.
Well, and, you said building block, it really does.
Yeah, it is.
Changing these habits from the benefits you're getting from changing your nutrition, but also changing your habits. Those things stack on top of each other.
So we try to, a few things that people, when their health or something's affecting me, I'm stressed out and whatever, it often can be food. It can be another thing that's really big is sleep. Now, something people don't pay attention to is food affects our sleep an awful lot.
Yes. And that gets down to that first point of...
Exactly. It's another block. And all these blocks interlock. They all... I didn't mean to do that, but this is a Lego... This is a Lego fort. This is a good old... I'm sorry, I'm going back. Robin Hood fort.
Good enough.
Oh, it is.
But yeah, it's easiest, one of the most accessible changes that you can make. There isn't a lot of time... So easiest, I mean, by that I mean there's not a lot of time investment most of the time.
Relatively, there isn't, right?
Yeah, in a relative way.
You look at. So we want to compare this to what you're looking at if you don't, or incomparable, right? So if you are dealing with something that food can help with, which is, we will argue almost anything when it comes to health. The alternative, which is pills, medications. And then surgeries, well, we all know those can be very pricey. I have friends that can test this constantly.
And pills, not so much, but surgeries also take you down for a period of time.
Right.
Sometimes long period of time.
And larger chunks of insurance cost, as a big picture thing,
on that too, like if you're not doing the other things to go along with those medications or the surgeries, then everything that all of that money and time that you're putting into that is essentially wasted too.
Yeah, and it is.
Like you can go get what is it, gastro bypass, but if you don't start moving a little bit, and if you don't watch what you're eating,
and
it doesn't. You might see an initial change, and that might stick, but you're not going to see a long-term change.
Yep. And there's so many surgeries that are, to me, they're crazy. They're larger surgeries, but they've been happening for so long within our culture. But knee surgeries, hip surgeries, shoulder, back.
Those unintended costs.
Yeah, unintended costs.
Indirect
costs. And these things, and everybody that I've known that has had these surgeries, their doctors 90% of the time recommend and ask them to lose weight. It's usually, and it depends on, of course, it depends on where you're at in your life. But an athlete already, who has a knee injury or one of these pertaining things, that's the rare exception. They really are. It's still a smaller percentage of the population. Larger percent of the population, if you're having a surgery on one of these things, you're probably not built like an athlete. You're just not in that shape.
The other way is that in a roundabout way, it doesn't necessarily require as much money. I know healthier, and not just healthier, but I prefer the term clean.
Yeah, cleaner.
Food.
Yeah, it's a very common good term.
Can seem expensive up front.
It is.
However, once you get in the habit of eating those things, you actually end up eating less.
Yep.
Because they fill you up better.
Yep.
And they take longer to work through your system.
That's right. Yep. Higher density foods.
And there's other aspects to nutrition than just what you eat. It's also your eating habits.
Yes. And that's a good point. It's a very good point.
Which also helps offset that. But you're also going to help offset those costs by not spending money on fewer medical needs. What else?
Well, there's just there's medical needs, and medical needs it's so broad and so impactful, right? So medical needs can fall into sleeping habits, which a lot of us.
Your health's going to be better, so you're going to be going to the doctor for a lot less stuff.
Yes.
You're going to need less medications because your body's going to regulate itself. And all these, so the costs offset themselves.
They do. There's always we know anybody who's not
non-backwards logic that Bernie Sanders tries to use for universal health care.
Right. Which again, we're not somebody who if it's something sounds wonderful and good, I would love for that to be real. That was young me. I've given away more money than I should.
Yeah.
So, but there is a law of equal exchange. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a mindset of I'm just going to stay right here and chill and be safe and do nothing, well, you are hindering yourself because you aren't being active to be able. You are not experiencing anything. You're not growing, you're not learning anything. And growth, learning, struggle are all fundamentally linked. You cannot grow or you cannot learn without struggle. No. Without putting yourself out there. And honestly, I'm not sure. I know you can attest this also, but I am exhibit A for this. And I'd love if I could sell my ass and play video games all day long, which I did throughout my 20s, right?
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you're sitting on the couch is.
Yes, whatever you're. Yeah,
everybody wants to do
exactly.
that.
Yep. You're cool. It's good, right? It feels good. But to an extent,
in a way,
yeah. Well, it eventually becomes diminishing returns. Honestly,
a name you're going to hear a lot, Huberman Labs. I think he talked about. I know him talking about this when he was on Jocko's podcast.
He does it a lot of times.
But it's that.
The high.
How I'm trying to remember how to word it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the achievement without the effort.
Yes, and so.
And that's
we are not like, so the addiction, the feedback that gives the endorphins, that gives that kick for everybody. The dopamine. Yeah, sorry. But what gives that is not the actual eventual arriving on this or that. It is the working through something.
Yeah.
And gets it to you. Well, and that's something relatively new with it.
Much better and much healthier dopamine release from doing that.
Right. It begins the habits we all love and do. And it's actually what we all like when we think about the dopamine kick is actually where we hold it. Like there are smaller ones that you can get. They're synthetic. Facebook and right. The synthetic ones that aren't really they're very small. They are very much linked to the rule of diminishing returns. Because if I sit there, for example, and play video games every day, well, this is a sensation. This leads into commercialization also. And I'll try to stay away from that. I'm sorry, but bigger and better, more and more, and it's not the fact that the game's bad or whatever. It's that we need more to satisfy something more because we are actually not getting the same thing because it's an empty pursuit. The return begins to start to diminish. And
that, to tie it back into the nutrition, is like part of where our bad habits with nutrition come in. Yes. Is because it's easy to go to the fridge and get a pop or
anything. Whatever it can be even healthy eating, right?
But it also like the snacks that don't require any effort to make,
right?
Which is a habit I'm trying to break myself.
It's easy to fall back into these habits as someone who has eaten very, 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 very healthy, and really did myself a number of favors, and thank you to many people that helped me on that path. But you can fall back into that. You can try to, and you can try.
It's just there.
Yeah, and you can try to, and we're always trying to find new ways to do things and find ways to actually live within this world. Because our world is not set up for this type of living or eating. It is set up for right now. Instant and convenience. Instant satisfaction and convenience.
Yes.
And so you try to find relative ways, and even talking to friends and relating to them and saying, okay, well, I can live this, and how do I do it? So that can begin a path down to like bad snacking, bad eating. It just really is a slippery slope, and it does take some preparation. It does take some time, and we really do have to question often where we're going to invest our time in. And also, again, that comes down to, where you're going to invest your finances in and how you want to. This is also, these questions and these elements come down to how much control do you actually want over your own life. We're all on social media and we all like to voice our opinion. And we all like to think that, we want this illusion that we will be willing to do anything we want to control our life. And we do control our life. Well, if you step back and look at how much we do versus what we're told or how we eat or what we put into our body, you'll see some troubling consistencies. Mm-hmm. So, again,
there's, I think that's another thing that Huberman has talked about. Maybe Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I should be calling him Dr. Huberman also, because he is a doctor.
Well, he's a professor also. He likes to call himself professor more often, but he is. Anyway, that's moot point. I'm sorry.
Not to get
I digress.
Down that. I digress. They talk. I forgot where I was going.
Food habits, eating.
I forgot what. I really forgot what I was going to say. That's
it's not been important. Let's move on.
Anyways, so
positive. So where are we on the?
We are in the general, or the public perception / definition, because definition and perception for a lot of what we're talking about, are kind of the same thing. They're very similar. They are. In the ways that we're talking about.
Well, so go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So talking about the general public is like in society, particularly in America, because that's where we're from. What people's perspective is of this, if you just did the walking down the street asking them, because this kind of how we're testing our formula here. So we're talking about health and nutrition,
right?
And nutrition. Food, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I think I changed things on myself in the middle of it.
Well, we can go back to public perception, right? Like, and where this is looked at, how it comes across, right? Because, I mean, the first thing I heard a chef I was following who makes beautiful, amazing desserts, and he said, no, he jokingly, sarcastically made it, said, not too much sugar because sugar's bad. Now fat's good. I was like, what? I thought that he was a devil. I lost so much respect for him. I love this dude, great cook, funny dude, and they said that. I'm like, what the heck is this dude talking about? This is 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's the attitude we have, And also, as somebody who, I love meat, I love fish, I love beef, I love steak, I love chicken, I love it all. Every meat I can eat. I'm not afraid to eat, snake, whatever I can eat. But there is a balance. There's a heavy balance that we are tipped towards within the Western culture, and there is a macho-ness, which is a very good thing. We're not here to attack or start saying statements about masculinity, but there is to the counter of what we actually hear. There is well, if I can't have my steak, I don't want it, or don't do this. There's actually a good time where you don't have to actually always. I love to have steak and tons of Brussels sprouts, and whatever else. But there are times, especially if you want to have consistent energy, if you want to build good eating habits, you don't always want to have a steak or a meat on every diet. It's just, for the human body, it's not practical. And I'm not, and I am the farthest thing away from being vegan. And the synthetic, or I'm sorry, the fake food that they want to sell you as being healthy is not completely unhealthy, but there are a lot of, the way it's processed and the way it's made is not healthy. I can say it's not really the most. If you are concerned about your long-term health, your longevity, your energy, everything that links up to your life and where you actually want to have control of things and be awake and just have energy in general, that's not the way to really achieve it. You want to have actual food, and less processed is where you want to go away from.
Which is where the clean comes in.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll get into that here in a moment.
Yeah, sorry.
So I think I messed myself up when I was doing the notes.
As you should.
Because I had this, somewhere I ended up with the idea of health and nutrition definitions.
Well, I see that.
But my first two are food and nutrition.
Yeah.
So, let's just kind of try to break this down. So, okay. When people talk about health and the general sphere of things, they usually think like athletic, or you think like an athlete, or
getting after it with the weights, right? Some sort of working out. Yeah, working out.
But that's and then nutrition, people, just food and eating good food.
Right. Well, the human body is so amazing. So we always think, but a lot of the images we see are youth, right? Because kids, as youth, I shouldn't say kids, as young adults into our late 20s, the human body is so amazing. We can just swamp it with tons of horrible eating habits and foods, and not even. I struggle to call it food nowadays, but the beating that our bodies take in the West from Western culture, and
especially in America, not just Western culture, in America.
It is, yeah, but it's grown. But we are extra special at it, as we are everything when it comes to.
We are setting the low standard.
Yeah, as it comes to excess. So, health and being healthy it should be, I believe. And if you listen to a lot of different people, doctors, to be healthy is usually past your young youth. It's usually past your 30s into it, because when your body starts to fail, it is your health that carries you forward past that. Health is not something that's just associated with being young. That's just being young and having that, that long, that, what's the word I'm looking for? But it's essentially being young. Let's just put there. You're not past your prime. So being healthy is a lot more to do with things we can fortify our body for.
Your longevity.
Your longevity. Yeah.
So let's do food too, because I think that's important, since that's essentially what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
And the general consensus on food is usually some product that we can consume, and that covers like the whole McDonald's,
Right.
Lay's chips, candy bars,
There
vegetables, fruits, whatever. If you can shove it in your face and chew it, it's food. Just about.
And there'll be points I wish I could touch on more when we address that, because I'm not a professor of science.
We probably will at some point.
Yeah, it's just there are people we can direct our listeners to that will be able to give them the data. We can direct you to a lot of, and we'll talk about doctor. We'll talk about human a lot. We'll talk about a lot of people. You'll hear a lot of people talk about, not like nowadays. If you're concerned with eating well, I think you will hear a lot of clean as a buzzword, and you'll hear low carb or no sugar.
Yes.
And now here's another thing that people will think. Well, like if you're eating sugar or carbs, you're just not that's not you can't eat those. Well, you can't eat those. There's actually a trade-off, but it comes processed.
Yeah, there's different levels of it,
and there's different levels of sugar, right?
Different types of sugar.
Yeah, and there's refined. There's tons of refined and processed sugars, most of which aren't even sugar. There's synthetic. A lot of it's corn syrup or corn syrup,
which is
it's
that's a whole other issue. Yeah. That I don't want to get into at the moment.
But yeah, we're not here to demonize anything. Also, and we're not here to.
You're not. I might.
Yeah, well.
But I'm not demonizing. I'm just. I want to point the light where it needs to go at points, because a lot of people aren't aware of these.
Yeah, things. I'm not here to attack anybody, right? Because I've been there, and I've actually, when I got into this stuff, as I do all things, I go hard, right? It's taken me 3 years to kind of calm my brain and say, okay, or myself, and say, okay, well, this is, you can't shove, your foot in someone's face every time and say, isn't this beautiful, right? This is just not going to work. So you have to actually go to them like you were approached. Why does it start making sense? Now, there is a saying that says usually we change our mind for 2 reasons. Either we've experienced something that's life altering, or somebody we love completely dearly has experienced it. It's life altering. That's when we change our mind.
Yeah.
We like to think we're reasonable creatures. No, we're creatures of
irrational.
We're creatures of instinct and habit, because habit dictates what's safe, and that's what's built up. It's not like something that's it's not evil or bad, and that goes on to a lot of social issues right now. But we're gonna keep it about food. But yeah, it's not a bad thing, and trying to get your wins and trying to find your wins and keep making steps is what we are about, especially when it comes to food, right? Because again, you can't slip back into bad habits, and there is consistency you want, and there are hard truths, and there is, like we alluded to, there's hard undisputable data, especially beautiful data that's being discussed now and being found nowadays and coming to light more. It's not exactly new or found, I should say. It's just being more discussed.
For me, in my perspective, because we, in my household, we're a little bit more holistic with things. Mm-hmm. So we do herbal remedies and stuff like that. Right. But my point on that is that this is stuff we've known for centuries.
Yes. Science is now backing that up.
Medical science and the interest behind that,
right? The money
have squashed that being one of the main interests.
Yes.
Has squashed a lot of this stuff and
again
promoted their own product, which, as a capitalist, I'm not against that.
Okay, exactly.
But there's no conversation.
Exactly. Well, the conversation is again, this goes back to what I was saying. I'm not here to demonize anything, because that's what happened. When you try to demonize something, you're afraid of it. Why are you afraid of it? You shouldn't be afraid of anything, right? There are truths.
Fear is a very powerful and useful tool, Barry. Anyways,
we know that, but going back, so all these holistic or herbs, all the stuff, you can look up, you can find, you can research the hard data on them. Mm-hmm. It's out there nowadays. You are no longer, you cannot say, you don't have an excuse to be ignorant anymore. You don't. Especially here in the West, we have oodles of ways to find the hard data, and that's where gentlemen like Dr. Professor Andrew Huberman and his other associates.
His cadre.
Yes, exactly. They go into, and it's amazing. It is exciting, amazing times because we have this here with us. You know, it's out there, and we have these people like this that are just discussing this stuff. You know, left and right. It's great.
So, anyways, moving on. Not that, these tangents aren't fun.
They are great. Sorry.
But, and we've touched on our definitions a little bit here, quite a bit, I think, in a roundabout way. But to hone that all in and bring that in at the end of it is, food is a product that benefits our body in some way that we consume.
Yeah.
I think is a good way to approach what we're trying to convey.
Yeah, like so food, but food is so much more in our culture, especially. Food is a class item. Food is a leisure item. Food is a style. Food.
It always has been, and that's not just our culture. That's all through history. If you look,
true. But like right now,
there are
especially,
very few cultures where food didn't have a class.
Right. Food has very rarely ever been simply, I eat food to survive.
I like this one that, today we think of vanilla as being very bland and plain and just everywhere.
Vanilla bean is
so abundant. But 100 years ago, maybe a couple 100 years ago, like only the richest of the rich had vanilla.
Yeah,
And people above them had these other these other spices.
The vanilla bean was, it's like, it's part of the spice trade that really started to grow like that. Why we're here now.
But it just an illustration.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
It's a great illustration.
It is a funny, yeah.
It's class and how that gap irony. Has been narrowed.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
It is huge. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the peasant class ate potatoes all the time.
Yeah. No. Like What's
and I'm not even talking about the potato famine. Yeah. Or no, that wouldn't matter anyways. But it just they didn't have access to food and stuff. They didn't have access to meat for a number of reasons.
Yeah, technology, etc.
Well, technology, not being allowed to hunt because
control.
It was the king's land or whatever.
Yep, you pay a very hefty fine. But again, like there's a saying also. Are you living to eat or are you eating to live? Right. So within our culture, just going back to a perspective of food, food is something that we need to consume for sustenance, for all these wonderful things that go on within our system, in our body,
and that's why I defined it that way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
It's something that a product that we consume that benefits us.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that there are two separate, we really need to identify,
and we'll get into those deeper elements as best as we can here in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
And then nutrition, as I put it, I don't know. Barry's kind of seeing some of the stuff for the first time because he can't follow instructions.
I mean,
nutrition is understanding and regulation of what you consume.
Yeah. And
that will very much become very clear later. But I'm going to take this moment to we're talked a little bit about doing a kind of spin-off series to give more episodes, but talking about individual foods and the benefits of those and why it's important to consume them.
Well, nutrition.
How much.
Yeah, nutrition.
Because that's a better learning and understanding for ourselves.
Yeah, nutrition a lot, like just again in our society.
But also sharing that stuff getting that information out there in a more accessible way,
a digestible way for people like to say, hey, what's up? So a lot of these words that we're going to cover and what we're talking about right now, we're trying to break down, right? Because you can throw the word out to nutrition, right? And that's all it is. People think about something, and what we think about right now isn't accurate, and it's not enough.
I forgot to cover that. Going back to the general idea of nutrition, because we kind of glossed over it or didn't cover it at all, because we're working ourselves out.
We're all right.
But like kind of the general consensus of nutrition when you talk to people on the street is that it's diets and weight control and those things, and to a degree it is.
But my point is also because that is like, again, like we're talking about blocks. That's part of the block. Diet, weight, consider it that as being, making sure you have nutrition. But nutrition, we have as a society, we have an idea, right? You'll see like multigrain bars and all these. There is a great section of, hey, this is the nutrition aisle. That's what people think of.
Yeah,
and that's
and in a lot of ways too, it's become a very gimmicky thing.
It is 100%. That's what I was getting to. Yes.
For a long time, I was leery of the organic label.
Right. Yeah. I know it's
because it's a very controlled label.
Yes.
And
then you have to look into everything nowadays. And again, we live in part of the good of where we live nowadays, right?
And when we live.
Right, when we live. Part of the good is that if you truly want to know, you can take the time to find out. You can find out almost anything about anybody nowadays, and especially if it's a larger, congregated issue like food is, you will be able to find the answers in the truth about what's going on. Organic is a funny word. It is a buzzword, and it is something that the companies are slapping on anything nowadays.
Well, to a degree, because it still has to meet standards.
There are standards,
but
and that's something we can get into later
those
on.
standards are questionable.
The corrupt FDA. I'm sorry, but in a place it's like organic. It's the same thing. Like, well, this is sugar free, right?
But what
that means is
sugar?
that also, but as long as there's a certain amount of it's a percentage.
Yeah,
it has to be below whatever percentage, which is not. It's not. It's kind of ridiculous. So.
It's not actually free of sugar,
right?
It's just
where they've put their guidelines.
Do they still use saccharin and stuff?
Yeah, I think
as a sweetener.
Yeah, they use saccharin.
Because that's full synthetic, isn't it?
Yeah,
or mostly synthetic.
90%. Yeah, we should have. I mean, a good person. If you want somebody to ride along with you, people who if you're into actually going to the store any other time to look at read the ingredients and the foods and the things that you buy, somebody who will help out. Now, he's a fruit. I think he's kind of crazy, but he's knowledgeable as all hell, and he's great for learning how to do things easily. Is Bobby Flay.
Who's that?
Because he has a get his PDF pulled up here.
Bobby, what's his name?
Let me make sure I get his name right here. Bobby approved is Bobby Parrish, Flav City. Parrish. Bobby Parrish, Parrish. That's how it is.
All right.
Yeah,
Bobby
and
Parrish.
he has a free app on Amazon that you can get with your Kindle.
And what is that called, Barry?
I just had that here, and I'll get back to that.
It was Bobby something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Bobby Approved is what it's called.
Is it one of those ones that you can scan it and it'll tell you?
Yeah. Yep. Bobby Approved, and it has. I mean, it's simple. Like you can look it up. You can look things. There's directories, and you can look to see. And he has a breakdown of a lot of things. I believe he updates it constantly too. I mean, the guy is helpful, and he's not somebody who's like he doesn't. He will talk about. He's not strictly this diet or that diet, but he will talk about all and he pertains to most to a very clean diet. If you look up his videos, he will show you how to make very simple, for cheaper than the sugar-free stuff you will find on the shelves, ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, all these things.
Yeah, mustard.
There you go. Yeah, it's simple. It's easy to make.
I just want to go on a little tangent here real quick. 'Cause I'm freaking weird.
No, let's go for it. Yeah.
Like, I've gotten off of ketchup for the most part, except for when it comes to Dairy Queen fries and Runza fries. It's like the only thing I'll eat with ketchup anymore. Yeah, weird. Or maybe just fries in general.
There's because
I started doing it with
ketchup
with the Doom burger fries too, McDonald's.
Yeah. See, I don't eat that shit.
Yeah.
I know. I don't want to hear it. I know. I'm just giving you.
I know. I have to justify it in my way.
Yeah. Just wave your hands. On it. Just wave your hands.
I'm finding solutions, man.
Flip me off.
I'm not being mean to you right now, Barry. You're being mean to me. I'm feeling bullied and uncomfortable.
As you should. Okay, which is all right. That's okay. So you'll get over it.
But
so
anyways, moving on. So let's get into actual definitions here. I'm going to cancel the health one for now.
Okay.
Nutrition, and this is per Merriam-Webster because I put a lot of trust and faith into Mr. Tolkien.
Well,
Professor Tolkien.
Like, I mean, he was awfully kind of bigoted towards those orcs.
Well, I mean, if you consider when he was writing that and them not actually being a stand-in for colored people and being a stand-in for Nazis.
No, I know. Actually, that's what it is. Actually,
I know.
Historically, even right now, there's a... Never mind, we're not going to get into that. It's not about, the misconceptions and the
let's keep
lies.
nerdy in a different way here. Anyway, so nutrition, as per Merriam-Webster, and I think the second definition. I did cherry pick the definition that I think
is
fits
that how
best.
we do things?
Yes.
Okay.
Nutrition is the act or process of nourishing or being nourished. I thought that was the best fitting definition, exact definition. And food, because I didn't go down this route. I have it pulled up here, though.
Okay. Yeah.
Material consisting essentially of protein, carbohydrate, and fat used in the body of an organism to sustain growth, repair, and vital processes, and to furnish energy.
There you go. That sounds more organic.
How did I not recognize that that's what happened? Because I'm just running on autopilot, I guess.
No, you're fine.
No,
I think
so that was funny.
I like the first part of that. The organic part was pretty good, but
yeah, I mean that's a nice definition.
which is
for
funny.
vitamin.
You know what? Well, yeah, but if you realize nowadays a lot of vitamins are the first thing you can get from organic. They're the most processed things that we can put in our body, and that's why they're so hard on our body. That's why our body, like, you have to drink tons of water just to get your freaking gut to work right.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's the definitions and our long roundabout way of getting there.
Yeah, that's the hard.
Do you have anything to add on the actual definitions?
Yeah, food is stuff that makes you run. Food tastes good.
Anyways, so I think if you look at that though in a very basic way, all three of those definition categories kind of work to get to the same place in a way, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we could get into the nuances if we wanted to take the time, but I don't think we need to. Right. You already did that a little bit.
Yeah. Stop backtracking.
So, let's start off with the bad stuff. Why? This is part of the reason why we want to talk about these things is to talk about the damages that are being done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the
and
hard.
After that, we will talk about things that can be done and positives and stuff like that for anybody who's worried about that. We're not just gonna.
So let's go. Yeah, you're right. What are the damages being done? So you put here havoc upon our bodies, minds, and emotions.
Yes.
If you want to elaborate on that, I mean, there is if you start to lean into it now, because this, I hope people who consume our topics here aren't just. I mean, I came into these type of talks as unknowledgeable as just very much that normie, if you want, guy that plays like I was
NPC.
Yeah, I was an NPC. Yeah, if you want to go there, I was an NPC. You know that nothing. I didn't care. You know, I was very happy just to consume and go, and didn't care. Food to me, I wanted food to taste good, give me a stimulant, and then get out of my face. Right? Unless it's a feast where I'm at with my friends and getting going that direction.
But do you want to get into like all the three things that I have and maybe anything that you want to add?
You have your bullet points.
We've got the havoc upon our bodies, minds, and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this is a huge part of the overall health epidemic in America specifically, but you're seeing this stuff rise in England and
anywhere
our
influence, anywhere the Western culture influence has reached deeply.
Because we can talk about they have McDonald's in Japan, but they're not serving the same trash.
Yeah, in India too, like in Germany and in Russia,
they've got their own menus.
It's very different,
and they control their food there. They just get to put the McDonald's name on it.
And again, so just so there's no misconception, it sounds like we're writing on Western culture. We are when it comes to food in our nutrition industry. I'm I'm just saying our patriotism is probably shouldn't be misunderstood.
I don't want to. if you really feel the need to qualify all this, I got my own idea of patriotism, and I'm very dedicated to that. Well, I swore an oath when I joined the Navy, and just because I broke my contract and got kicked out doesn't mean that
right.
oath went away.
Right. No, I'm just saying. I'm saying like right now, because we say we drag the Western culture thing to the mud. It's not that it is a we're not demonizing Western culture as a whole.
No,
this pertains to food and nutrition,
and especially in America, like we
because we do value money so much.
Well,
it is a marketing gambit.
This goes into the next point, though, a little bit, is a lack of knowledge and, dare I say it, misinformation coming right from the top.
Yeah. Well, there's benefits from when you're going to get when you financially benefit, and it is a benefit to keep people on a path that is unhealthy. There's nothing. The only thing that will stop this is interrupt this. Is an outside force, and if you're lucky enough to experience that outside force, if you stumble upon this often, right?
So, you've already taken a jab at them in your very sly way, but the FDA. Yeah. Most people don't think about this. It's a government agency, and we have this perception that the government is just there. They can do no wrong.
Well, we have this perception.
And the wrongs that they do are justifiable.
If you don't mind me saying so. The government, we see it as this entity, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, oh, yeah, they don't always get it right, but they do mostly right because it's the American government, and we perceive ourselves as to be.
And that's the perception, right?
But it is people just like me and you, and these people have their own self-interests. Now, most people are generally people want to be good, but there are careers, there is money, and these things do change. And there is influence that happens. And the government is a bunch of people, just like me and you can be wrong and infallible, and just like they can.
But there's also a lot of corruption that is infiltrated.
Right. And that's why people, right? Like
that comes from a lot of sources.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pinpoint anything here other than specifically talking about the FDA right now because it is so relevant to the topic.
Again, they're individuals. It's not some wholly do-good entity. It is a group of bunch of individuals who are trying to make their careers and make money.
Yes. Now, the reason I want to shine so much light on this is because it is such a centralized aspect that the government truly owns a monopoly on this.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that individual corporations can't take it upon themselves to do the correct thing.
Yep. And the organization ALEC makes sure that.
Even there, they still have to run through the FDA for things. And even if they're doing the correct thing in some instances, the FDA, because it doesn't fit their guidelines, will deny them.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, there's a crazy game.
Really interesting look into this. A very brief look into how this works too. Watch the movie The Stuff from the 80s.
Well,
it's a great example of how this corruption works within the FDA.
There's a few great doctors have been working over the years, especially Robert Langwood. Let me look it up real quick here. I can't remember his last name.
But I'm going to continue on my point here for a minute. So I don't want to get too deep into like the nuances and the ways that we can combat the FDA and how that can work without the government, because that's a whole nother thing and kind of not the point of this right now. But it's the whole point of all that is that we look at the government and the FDA in the United States as this is our government and it can't do any bad. However, the FDA approves a lot of stuff that is illegal in other countries.
It has been deemed, even as close as Britain. The Britain Isles have deemed most,
like 90% of the shit we consume.
Yeah, most of our.
That was the last figure I heard, and that was several years ago. So take that with whatever salt you want.
Yeah,
but
and they're not. They still have they're in the same trouble. Robert Lustig, Lustig. If you want to look up some good books and papers he's written, he's all over YouTube with Low Carb Down Under. Now he's
for now.
Yeah, well, no, he's still there. He's been doing stuff for he's still been doing stuff for 10 years. Dr. Andrew, I'm gonna butcher this, or Alex. Sorry, Dr. Alex Petroslavsky.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's Petrushevski. He's a young dude, but he's really getting after it. Mm-hmm. I keep going. There's another gal that I've followed for the last 3 years, but she's actually from England, and she's doing studies and specials on this stuff where she had her whole show and budget pulled and canceled.
Mm-hmm. Which is another aspect of the centralization of things, but
yes.
That's a whole other topic.
Yes.
So anyways, like, we consume a lot of stuff in America. That's why I'm so heavy on saying Western culture, and specifically in America, because we think we're the greatest, but that's a huge delusion.
Well, there's a misconception. I think that there is fundamentally so much amazing greatness that comes from the osmosis of what is here, right? Mm-hmm. The freedom that is allowed by our capitalist society, which.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even care to visit North Korea.
I know. So this is the double-edged sword, and like anything, like any system, there is a good and a bad. Not every system is. Some systems are harder to control, but there is a good and a bad about everything. Just like we have good habits and we have bad habits. And part of what's afforded to us is every individual in this country has the ability to go and find out this information for ourselves. Now, if we want, it depends on how convenient you want your life to be sometimes, and where you want your life to be convenient in. It's like you choose your battle. This is what the health conversation and food conversation we're talking about right now. Same exact thing.
There's a lot of freedom that comes from this, though, too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. There's this is liberating. But you have to actually do the work to be liberated, right? It's like when are you wanting to do the work? Are you wanting to do the work now when you have energy, or when you're beat up and banged up and you cannot get it done?
So, all that being said, that's just to qualify why we're talking about the West and the United States in that way.
Long way.
If you want real good qualifications, like Barry was saying, it's not that we hate Western culture. We're not those kind of people. We love Western culture. Yep. I love all culture.
I was going to say, there's if we're going into it, there's amazing, this is, and that's again, what's afforded us that thought right there is Western culture, honestly.
Yeah, and my experience in the Navy gave me the ability to visit places.
Yeah, the world's beautiful.
And appreciate some of the things that we have here.
The world is troubled, but it is beautiful overall.
It's a big culture shock when you rely on wearing sunglasses to avoid going to jail just for looking at a woman.
Yeah.
Which is an experience.
Yeah.
There's huge culture shocks that a lot of people aren't even aware of. People that have traveled some places too, but they went to westernized places. So
yes, I'm going to say most places, depending on your field or if you're there for vacation, you're not seeing the full culture in general. You are seeing a lot of the tourist. You are on the tourist path. There is, anyone who in journalists, refer to it as a tourist path, and the journalists go off the beaten path often. Mm-hmm. And those guys, those people, men and women, are got some pretty wild stories. But I digress. Back to so we got the health, nutrition. Do we want to go on to the damage being
getting
done?
back into this.
Move to the
Let's get our train back on the tracks. So the havoc upon our bodies, like it there's what do I want to do here? So onset diabetes is mostly a diet related thing.
So yeah, if
adult onset diabetes,
yes,
which
adult
is type
onset
2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes, and even
there are genetic elements to it.
There are bodies that are just like me and you are very different body types, right? Mm-hmm. Our bodies are more receptive to certain different things, both physically and internal, organically within our bodies, and our organs and our minds and our process, just based off of the history of our heritage, we're going to respond to things differently, and that's just across the board. You can't.
But ultimately, when we're talking about that, and this is just an example of the troubles that we're having with our bodies. Yeah. The greater health epidemic, if you will, is that a lot of these things can be avoided by eating clean food, eating correct foods.
And well, there's
and like I said, I've heard a lot about the diabetes things through several different podcasts. Some of them
another one I can
very scientific. Some of them talking to people who've written books on this stuff and are exploring this, and we're getting a better understanding of it. Maybe it's just that the better understanding is allowed to come to light now. Also, but it a lot of it is based on the things that we consume and stuff, and seeing somebody facing that recently is part of the reason why it's on my mind. Somebody who's close to my family and the choices that she's making for her family, that God, I want to be the bad guy sometimes for her, but I can't. Yeah,
there are choices that we all make, and there's so I'm looking up his name right now, but the man of the year, and I think it was 2020 for Australia.
Okay.
Sorry, did I interrupt you? Go ahead. I thought you were done.
I'm just kind of rolling right
now.
This
is just an illustration of diabetes and the impact of our high carb. And again, this is why I'm not trying to demonize anything, because it's not that we want to cut. You don't have to cut everything out, right? I have literally cut for a year or extended period of time carbs out of my diet.
Yeah.
But you don't have to live and eat and have a healthy diet. But the thing is, why I'm not trying to demonize this stuff is, we have an overabundance. We eat too much of carbs. And why? Because carbs and sugar, they stimulate us. It is a stimulant. They make us feel good. They taste good. That's why everything has sugar in it, or synthetic sugar.
Also comes especially for us, but when did it start? The 50s, 60s?
What's that?
The food pyramid.
The food pyramid, it was started,
which was a huge scam.
Yeah, it started in the 80s, but there was the foundation of it in the 50s. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the official one was in the 80s, but the idea behind that all started in the 50s.
Yep.
And God, it's been so long since I've read that book. I don't even remember what it's called. But it came from entities, corporate entities.
Yeah, there was
influencing the FDA to build this nutritional pyramid in this way. And they backed it with all these studies that said exactly what they wanted.
There were let's use quotation marks when we say studies. There was very loose studies.
Yes.
They omitted. There is documentation now, left and right, all over the place, where they omitted tons of information, especially pertaining to the sugar studies.
Yeah. And fat and all this stuff.
Yes.
And that's why a lot of this is a huge shock for a lot of people, because you've got 2-3 generations of people who've been taught that grains should be a huge part of your diet, right. And that's false.
No, there's a path that if you look at, how's an easy way to get people to eat things, well, make it taste good. There's a reason why McDonald's, the reason when they blew up back in the 80s, they started putting sugar into their buns when they're making stuff. There's a domino effect that's happened throughout our whole culture and our health in relation to our food and the insurance and everything else, the medical field, so you can look at. And I don't know how much we want to go into that. Maybe we'll tonight.
That's another.
Okay, but there's been things. Grains are cheap and easy for us to sell and make. Sugar is cheap and easy to sell and make. You can put in everything.
Not only that, but you've got the policies that came out of the New Deal under FDR that controlled how much farmers could grow, how much they could sell, where they could sell it. And then you got this reversal of that where the farmers are coming back and saying, hey, if you're doing this, we need to be able to do all this other stuff. And those policies haven't gone away. And in a lot of ways, they've been abused even more. And that's how we have ethanol in our gas and all this stuff. And again, this isn't necessarily an anti-government podcast.
There's a lot of back scratching that happened also.
People need to be made aware of this stuff if you want to actually see change in the world.
Yeah, no, and then there's the impact that it's had, and now people will say, well, this is where the what do you call it, what's the stigma? The word escapes me.
For what?
Conspiracists.
Conspiracy thing?
Yeah, this is where the big old because that's no argument word that people will use to dismiss things often when they don't understand or don't want to do the time to
look at validity to that. And there's something that I've pulled from Russell Brand that is great, and it's so true, that conspiracy grows in lack of transparency.
Right, but and then what I'm saying is, people will use it as an argument, pejorative argument, just to dismiss something as having no foundation, right? And the fact that food has a larger impact on your body than, especially when it comes to helping. What's the word? Gosh, I'm getting tired. Need more coffee. But when it comes to
right there, Barry.
I know. Well, it's cold. But when it comes to preventing, not once you are on set this or that, but preventative lifestyle and healthcare has more to do with your nutritional food, all the things that run that gamut, than anything that you can put in your body in a pill form, because the pill forms. Sorry, but your body, and this has been studied in almost acknowledged nowadays, they don't digest well. They're not something natural that our bodies have generations of being used to taking. And that's why there's so many different kickbacks of, you may have this symptom due to this and this. If your guts explode inside your body, stop taking this.
Yeah. All
those little precursors that you will see on almost every single infomercial, whatever we have nowadays. So, yeah, getting back onto the track of diabetes and all that sort of, food is number one. Sugar, it's we want to do is want to aim at not taking away this, not making it not fun, but especially when if you go without, because I've done this, I've told you about these things, going without chips or going without soda, and the reason why I was in bad shape in the first place is because I loved it all. Yeah. I have a very much a glutton personality.
Well, and that stuff's designed.
Designed, exactly.
It's designed to get you to eat, want it, but it's also designed to not actually fulfill you.
Well, it doesn't. It can't. It's just where our bodies are made. It cannot fulfill you. It is, if you eat higher density food, you will feel more satiated. You will feel healthier.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. And so with this stuff, and for me though, my personality type, I had built myself to be someone who chases the cheap, quick satisfaction. And that's why I was just going to keep on eating these things until it hit a peak.
That incentive came home too is, a lot of this stuff is cheaper because they're able to prolong the life of it and do all these things, which science can be great for that, but it's also got these negative impacts that if you're... Well, frozen food probably isn't as bad, but like canned foods.
Right. Well, it's like sugars nowadays. Like, we all love Oreos, for example.
Gross.
Go to hell. So, no, they're poison. They are trash food, but I love them. I'm getting better at making my own homemade ones. But anyway, the Oreos we eat nowadays are not almost in every way the same chemically made way of 20 years ago, 25 years ago. There's and the reason that happens, just a simple reason why that happens, is because you have marks that you're trying to make more money every year. Yeah. As a large company. You want to make more money. So one way you can't just keep on raising the price. You can nowadays, but you can't keep on raising the prices of stuff exponentially. So you have to keep on cutting costs on something way. So you have a whole R&D facility simply dedicated to find ways to make new synthetic ways that are cheaper to make these products, people. And that's why that's a gamut of another long issue I could get into about food and candy and the whole switcheroo and all that stuff. It's a long, and it's not healthy for you. And at its most basis, maybe back in the day, it wasn't nearly as bad as it is nowadays. But it's so synthetically built nowadays.
Yes,
and the internal corruption just plays right into it.
And we've talked a lot about the body, but it also affects your mind.
Yeah,
and
And that's something human.
And
that's
from the mind also affects your emotions.
Yes.
Like the nutrients and stuff that we get, and these synthetic things.
So what, Bran? We sell you a pill then, okay?
Into your brain.
If it's messing with your mind, we'll say, here, I got a new Prozac, all right?
Well, and there's connections there, right? But they're not. They're connections that were made post, not one was done so that way the other could be done.
No.
In most cases.
Well, no. So, one is a. A lot of it is a ramification. You want to say is a byproduct of what happens. But like what. And that's many professors or doctors get into nowadays. Like Huberman gets into this.
Yeah.
Listen to a lot of his podcasts going back a few years or months. He will address this stuff.
On Found My Fitness with Dr. Rhonda Patrick.
Yes.
She gets into this stuff too. And like these are high level neuroscientists.
And these are people from New York and Stanford. I mean,
yeah, that are exploring this stuff, and you know, they're bringing on people who are better experts than them in this stuff.
Yep.
But because of their position as scientists, they understand, and they're
the overlap within these communities is great, right? Like that's why I think I mean, you know, Huberman is just in itself, because not everybody like not your to say cup of tea, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's not like the most entertaining guy, but he brings on a lot of people and a lot of data. I'm saying in general. But he brings on a lot of people that just keep on sparking the conversation with his hard data and his research, and it's
and he does the research himself.
Yeah. Well, he's a neuroscientist.
He does have a lot of guests, but he also does a lot of independent episodes where he goes into these things that, again, he might not necessarily be an expert in, but he understands how to read this stuff and understands the effects. Yeah,
and it does relate to his field. His field is not small. His field is quite broad within the reaches of health and medicine. You know, the brain.
You're feeling tired, look out your window for a few minutes.
Right. Anyway, the brain is a pretty, kind of data bank there. So,
but it like these synthetic things, they block a lot of and bad foods don't help produce the things that we need in our brains to
the easiest
help
way
with anxiety and depression.
Right. The most common way that I've heard doctors and people refer to it, right? It's like you can only put so much sludge for a simple explanation, or even we do computers, but you only put so much bad fuel and uptake or upkeep on the vehicle until the vehicle starts showing exhibiting different issues and different things, right?
And the car is a decent analogy, not metaphor. I actually, that's some of the stuff that I get into a little bit later if you look.
Yeah, I do see that right there.
I got a really good breakdown of it, I think.
That's all right.
Not to dismiss that completely, but like you should think of your car or your body as a car, and the type of fuel, the type of fuel you put in your car affects how well it runs.
Yes. And it doesn't just affect like nowadays and people who start to look and research health in your body, you will start hearing that the gut is the second brain, right? I'm not sure if you've heard that yet, but just the interconnectivity between the neurons, between the gut and the brain, and all the relation between the healthy proteins that pass back and forth, they are connected in just crazy ways it's very
amazing.
Real.
It's almost miraculous.
It's a thing that we never 10 years ago I didn't think about that stuff. 10 years ago it wasn't a thing of populist that I'd ever hear.
Well,
my gut is here to store my food.
In a roundabout way.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm being sarcastic.
Getting into pun. Well, I'm making puns here now. You'll see here in a roundabout way. Okay. The world is less round because the internet has flattened the world, right? And 10, 20 years ago,
listen, flat earther.
I said world, Barry.
So what the internet has done is taken that wormhole and folded over on itself, so they are real.
Well, it's flattened the world, so that way it's easier to get information. It's a lot more difficult to restrict information.
Can I make an analogy?
And connection to people.
You ever been to a buffet?
Yes.
Okay, so a long line of food. So it's hard to get to that food down there, and that's flat. But the minute they start putting those turnstile buffets there, you don't have to move and you just turn your food. Mm-hmm. I don't like your analogy. I think that the internet has given us maybe better just to say is it's a moot point, but that it's it's given us our own turnstile to the world. We all have our own turnstile.
Kinda, yeah. But I use the round because you can't see around
on
a
the
curve.
other side.
Yeah, you can't see around a curve, but you can see across the plane.
Depends on your version. No, that's good. That's good. I like it.
So do we have any more on the damages?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I
we
keep
could
going.
spend hours
I could keep
talking
going on
about
this.
it,
Depends on,
and a lot of that will just keep
a
circling back
lot of it
on
is
the same things.
And what I want to really drive home is it's not witchcraft. It's not these silly, you're a healthy person, or you're an organic eater. You're not, man. You like steak is what you are. You like chicken. You like things. You like your kids to be healthy past the age of 12. Okay,
right.
You are not like some pigeonhole thing they will sell to make you feel bad about taking things into your own hands.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back to this personal connection I have with somebody who's recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
Is like the trajectory she's on. Like she's not quite 40. She's like 36, 37.
Jesus. That's about time.
The trajectory she's on with her family, her kid's gonna have adult onset diabetes at 20.
What I was talking about earlier is, and I'm trying to be as quick about this and simple about this as I can be, but the man of the year in I think Australia, 2020 was when he was the man of the year because he's an eye doctor.
Okay.
And he made a living essentially off of taking care of people's eyes. But what affects people's eyes a lot? Blood sugar.
Okay.
And he's done research. He's seen this stuff. He's you know that about how much.
No, but it's interesting because I don't think you'll ever see a person with diabetes who doesn't have glasses.
Right, and that's part. Like, that's what he goes into this. Like there is it makes your risk of other diseases and cancers so much higher. And he does. This is where he was essentially going to be a whistleblower, which is funny because it's kind of the point he makes. It's like, well, I didn't get to do my tour because we're now under lockdown. So
yeah, it's
funny. There's a lot of different things that coincide, but. Fascinating fellow. And I was looking for him. You can find him under low carb down under because they're all Australian, and he does a speech on it. Yeah, and they're all doctors too, by the way. And they're always experimenting with diets.
We'll probably put some of the stuff down in the description.
Yeah,
that was low carb down under.
Low carb down under. And they actually even have seminars in Denver, Colorado, which are fascinating. Anyway, but so this stuff is not like to make it. This isn't saying, listen, nerd, or be like us because we're, any like that. These are things that have impacted and are impacting your life and your convenience of life and the health of life.
Well, and your quality of life.
Quality of life. And we talk about how we're so set in this, we are what we are here in the West, and we're so opinionated, right? Well, if you want to be on that true right, I'm a person who gets things done, then unplug for a bit. Take time to, and you don't have to go all in, but these small things, they will send ripples through your life. It's sending ripples through my life.
Getting one less iced latte a week, one less McDonald's trip, just making those simple changes can see a huge improvement.
Yeah, the mental, I won't lie to you, the mental fortitude that does come sometimes with changing an eating habit, especially when our Western diet is built around this of convenience and the trash food. It is not easy, and that's what you're talking about. You can, right now, you're the McDonald's thing.
Yeah, it's a struggle for me because I'm on the road a lot for my job.
There you go.
And a lot of times...
and you can't... Your McDonald's isn't freaking good food, right? It's not good food, but it's the food that's there, right?
Well, it's... So let me finish explaining my situation here. So I travel a lot for my job, and there are days where I can't plan for it. I don't know that I'm going to not get my lunch.
Right.
And I'm going to be on the road while I eat.
Right.
when you're in that kind of situation, there kind of really are no good options. So I eat McDonald's definitely way more than I should, but usually twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays.
Right.
And for me, the reason why is because it's a $4 snack versus going to a convenience store and spending $10.
Right. There's
for equally bad food and for an equal amount of food.
There's a doctor from India who's is he a surgeon? He lives in Florida. I'm trying to find him real quick here. But he has a saying, and he talks about, there he is, Dr. Rangan, I can, Chatterjee. It's Chatterjee.
I'll write that down later.
Yeah. But he goes into, he says, and there's a lot of people that talk about this, but it's if you're in the woods and you're getting hungry, if you don't know what to eat for multiple reasons, such as maybe eating something that's poisonous, it is best to not eat something. Because this gentleman right now talks a lot about intermittent fasting. He is a surgeon. He's one of the top. I'm not sure. I want to say globally, but it might be globally. And he gives seminars, and he talks about what he's seen as far as the benefits of fasting,
mm-hmm.
and the dangers and how most of his patients have been people who overeat.
Yeah.
It's our Western culture of being unhealthy too much, essentially, and it's convenience. But
it is, and the fact that we don't have.
And I'm not telling everybody to fast, but fasting is extremely good and healing on our internal organs, primarily the gut.
Well, it's how we're designed.
Yeah,
it's not how we're designed.
We have thousands of years of genetic data. It's
millions.
Built up. Yeah.
Millions of years of us not having food in abundance.
Yeah, in abundance.
Where we could just walk to some stupid box in another room and get food. Yes. We had to work for our food for millions of years. I don't think we appreciate how recent this is.
Yeah. Well, it comes with
even 100 years.
Right. Well, it comes with
this wasn't.
Right. It comes with perspective, right, and perception, because a lot of people don't equate the genetic data, right, that we are born with, and people won't call it instinct. That's part of it also, but the way our bodies are made and built, and there's other stuff we can both contend with when you discuss this. But it's from your body building through this way for thousands to millions of years, and every scientist knows this. And again, it's something Dr. Huberman talks about. He's like, well, right now your body can't digest all these pills real good, right? Maybe in 1,000 years after we've lived this way, and well, that's a whole other discussion. But you have different casts of people, but
going through an evolutionary change.
Evolutionary change of the Morlocks versus the time machine. Anyway.
Yeah, and I forget their name.
Is it Morlocks?
Morlocks and
the what's the
estrians or something like that.
The normals, more or less the food normals.
Yeah. Anyways, on that point though, I do have a counter for it. If I know what the poison is and I can cure myself of it, I'm going to consume the poison if it'll keep me going.
Well, yes, and there's always.
But anyways, that's just me being fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I think it's more of just a.
Right, that's just me digging into the metaphor more than I need to.
Yeah, there's always a win-loss, right? And when
there's always trade-offs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And for you have stresses. Everyone has stressors and stresses that I or somebody else doesn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so for you now, if that substance keeps you going or avoids a larger stressor, then that's a trade-off you're willing to take.
Yeah, because I'm on the road. Probably due to nutrition, I do have moments where if I don't eat, I will get lightheaded and shaky.
The hardest, yeah. Well, I think everyone, and our bodies, most of that is just a withdrawal. It's our body that just, it's not really, it's not a sugar.
So being on the road, I don't want to have that happen and end up in
the whole your high, low blood sugar thing is a complete lie, and that does factor in, but it's not the same as it's taught or perceived, but that's more or less just your gut adjusting. But yeah, the first 12 hours of a fast are hell for me. You can
well,
once
it
you
depends
make
on
it,
what you're doing with your
yeah. If you're busy,
anyway, we'll talk about that later too.
Yeah, we can.
That's one of my points.
Okay.
So I think we've beat the crap out of the damages.
We can keep going.
I mean, again,
I know.
that's something that we can talk about.
The damage is done.
We've got plenty of other episodes in the future where we can talk about these things.
And we will.
So, positives, I didn't have a whole lot. It's, as we all know, it's hard to come up with positive things sometimes. But, not all the clean food is gone. Like the positives of what we're talking about here. So this isn't things that we can do. This is like, it's not as bad as it seems, right? This is the silver lining, Barry.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so positive as in which way? Like, it being easy, or what comes from it?
Well, it's just like the positive aspect of what we're talking about.
Nutrition?
Yes. So,
positive aspect is
clean food isn't all gone. We're not living in, was it THX, where they have Soylent Green?
Yeah.
And or any of these dystopian future stories where people are eating, they consume a pill and that's their whole meal, right?
There's again, like that's part of the part of the what we're taught again, and this is this systematic thing. This is to me, it's most ugly. But you can grow a little vegetable garden can grow anywhere. Now, not every climate. Yes, given certain circumstances, yes and no. Right? Like there's a gentleman in eastern Nebraska that grows citrus from lemons, and it's not all just because he pumps them full of steroids. He grows oranges and lemons. It's because he's figured out how to.
Well, and plants are evolve at a much quicker rate than we do. So it's within a couple generations of a plant, you can have it growing in any climate.
Yes,
most of them.
Well, it's the environment he created for them. Now, an environment
and
can
that
happen
too.
Right, an environment for whatever, growth. And this is why we see a lot, unexplained, where, because it's because this small culture, ecoculture also, happened to allow it to.
But that's one of my other positives too, is that you do still have the ability to even grow your own food.
Yeah,
and
we're both doing it.
I'm trying.
I'm not sure. Yeah, my garden hasn't sprouted this year, but it's out there growing.
So yeah, I've got my garden started. It's going to expand.
And maybe we can talk about this. Like there's macro, micro greens you can do, which are edible and healthy. That again is almost that starts pushing me towards look. I'm where's my beef type of conversation.
Well, and that's probably maybe a side episode
when
we're talking about food and exercises and all these other things.
But being nutritious is there are a few things, and one of it is where you can, if it's a matter for you, where you can get your wins, for how convenient is it for you, how important is it that you have these foods that taste good, how important is it that you have energy, how important is it that you sleep well, and how important is your bodily health in relation to organs, the brain, just all the processes that lay into everything else, that go and feed into everything else.
Well, and that foods that taste good, right? Like,
that's a big one. Yeah. How big is that win?
A really healthy cake that tastes like cake,
dude. I can make a chocolate mousse that you would not know did not have sugar in it or dairy. You know what I mean? Like I can dang near. When I started this adventure of mine, I had to start. It was a struggle, right? It was like I wanted that stuff, so I'm starting to bake. I'm buying all these freaking things that I've never thought I'd use in my life. Mm-hmm. To bake things and make things.
But and that's where some of the work and extra time comes in.
Exactly.
Because you can't just go to the bakery down the street and get these things.
And again, did I want my gallbladder removed, or did I want to find a way?
Yeah.
And I still have my gallbladder.
Right. So you had to make a choice.
Yeah. Am I going to make excuses, or am I going to go have this thing ripped out of me? Mm-hmm. And it was that simple, right? Like I don't want to do this, or it's too hard, or I don't have time for my kids. It's like you have time for everything. We have time for what we choose to have time for.
Yep. Anyways, that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah, it relates as well. Well, it's top. I mean, it relates. Absolutely relates.
All right. So
it's a positive.
like I said, I mind you, I also didn't quite put a lot of thought into it. But do you have any other positives that you can come up with at the moment? Do you think of?
Well, this is very vast. I mean, you feel better. There are studies done on families and individuals who cook, who take a period to say, okay, well, I'm, like, not like it's weighing on you. If anything weighs on you, that's a stressor. If you perceive something to be weighing on you, that creates stress, and you do not enjoy it. Now, if you anticipate it as a challenge, that's different, and that creates excitement. That gives off a different form of stress and anticipation. That's actually the body likes that. But taking time to cook and work within a cooking element, or what's the word I'm looking for? Just cooking, I'll say, is a relaxing, meditative type of.
It can be.
Right. Did you hear what I said?
It depends on how you approach it.
Did you hear what I said, Bran? Because you were looking around. Okay, so like I said, if you put yourself into a stressor, if you're anticipating things that are not going to be pleasant, so making time to, again, taking time to do something that you enjoy, cooking, making homemade meals also, that is a very good thing. It can be a very good thing for not only you, but the people who are around you.
Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. This is Bran cutting in again. I promise I'm not doing this because I like to hear myself talk. Just letting you know that we had to cut this into 2 pieces, and this is the end or the first part because it got too long. Apparently, Barry and I really liked talking about this stuff. So, thanks for listening to this part. Second part is posted right behind this, so not much need to be disrupted or whatever. Not like those other podcasts that make you wait forever for the second part.
Are you sure about that not liking the sound of your own voice thing?
That's Lynn. No, I just like to ramble on. You know that.
Is that it then?
Okay, bye-bye.